Yo, yo, yo. Hello, Verony Fates. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the coping stream. Let's all cope together watching Bitcoin do some nonsense, get bullied. It's been the theme lately, isn't it? It's been quite sad to watch. Hello, Bucket Printer. Hello, man. How are you? I hope everyone's doing great, despite these downtrends that we've been seeing since mid-January and since the daily 100 MA tap, which was the last great thing. Hello Kels, hello Rooney, hello Pizza, 123 Pizza. Hello everyone. Welcome for another public stream. We have a little bit less than 1 hour ahead of us today. We are probably mostly going to discuss Bitcoin anyway. Yeah, plan for the stream. H1, H4 daily focuses. Q&A, but that goes through the stream. Ask any question you have. And if we have a little bit more time, chat requests. But again, I only have a little bit less than 1 hour today, so maybe we won't have time. Depends on how long we discuss Bitcoin and what questions you guys have. But we'll see how it goes. But yeah, quite the shit show, isn't it? We've had a nice bounce yesterday evening off of the news of the US government shutdown ending a little bit sooner than expected. And it basically helped squeezing late shorts. And unfortunately, we basically just came back for the H1 trend retests and got denied again. For 2 days, or maybe, yeah, for 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, we had an attempt to break H1 downtrend, which was very choppy. Extremely rapidly, we could see that we wouldn't get the kind of momentum we would want to see. And we've been able to see that mostly by 15 minute 200 MA was not flipping support. Classic 15-minute compression, lost flip resistance, new leg down. And as I said, nice bounce overnight, fueled mostly around US close by the news of the US government shutdown ending. But yeah, after that, straight back to H1 downtrend, plus key block of 66, 67. We went a little bit higher than what I had in mind, and so far denied again. So main goal for today's stream, let's discuss H1, H4, daily, weekly. I'm going to discuss most things I'm seeing, what I'm doing, what I've been doing. Spoiler alert, not much. I will explain why. I will highlight, yeah, each of the main scenarios I have in mind and each of the main focuses, main things I'm watching on each time frames. And after that, we'll see if we have more time for some shitcoins. I would assume a lot of people would want to discuss hype. So maybe we can discuss that later. But we'll see how it goes. So yeah. Hello, Barot. Hello, man. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Thanks, everyone. And yeah. Good morning, Eat from Bits. How are you, lads? I hope that despite these nasty downtrends, I hope everyone's doing great. It's not our first rodeo, isn't it? Like, for anyone that's been in the market for quite some time, it's not the first time that we're seeing these kind of conditions. I guess it's more painful than the previous ones for some people, mostly because we haven't seen much of alts move. And basically, we are seeing Bitcoin getting mostly wrecked without SPX retracing too much. We've seen metals going completely nuts. So maybe it makes it a little bit harder to accept than previous cycles. But to be honest, I've seen a lot of people discuss that and say that this time it feels worse, that this time the sentiment is worse than they ever seen. I think people forget how bad things were in 2018. Obviously, the market was much smaller, and maybe therefore the sentiment was different. Maybe the opium was stronger. But if you were there in 2018, and the only thing you were able to do was trade shitcoins against Bitcoin without too much USDT pairs, you didn't have futures to even try to make the best out of downtrends. You had some projects on BitMEX and those kind of things, but it was not as popular as it is today. So that was shit. You basically had not much to do besides sell and wait. Last bear market, as much as people are saying that sentiment is worse today, the truth is that at some point last bear market, we had FTX going down, Luna crashing, SEC going after all the exchanges, naming most of the majors and most of the shitcoins as securities. I think it was in June 2023. Maybe I have my timeline a little bit messed up. It was right before BlackRock announced their ETF, their Bitcoin spot ETF fillings. I would argue that the sentiment was much worse back then, mostly because at this point, at least to me, maybe I'm biased, but at least to me, there was a proper, even for Bitcoin, systemic risk, in the sense that what's left when the leading market that was FTX ended up being a fraud. And that is something else I wanted to insist, but when I see people say, oh, it's worse than last time, at least with FTX it was rapid and things like this, I think people forgot how the things went. It didn't just happen November 2022 with FTX going down. We've had multiple tragic things before, and if you lost money on a downtrend in a bear market like we have right now, you can at least blame yourself. On FTX, you woke up one day, you were not able to withdraw your money. So first, there's that. Maybe I'm copying. Maybe it's because it's a cycle. I've been mostly focused on Bitcoin compared to previous ones. Maybe it feels less painful for me because of that. Where I would agree with some people saying it's worse than last time, I think it's also because it's more quiet. It's quieter. I don't know if that's an English word, but it's more quiet. City is more quiet because the mind process, the mind thought, I don't know how to say it in English, but the overall focus from people on City is not just crypto anymore. Last cycle, basically, if you were on City, you came and you discussed crypto and trades, and that was it. With the new way X, Twitter is working, and how it became such a strong, polarizing political place, then the mind share is more dispersed, and it does feel much more quiet. And maybe that's why the sentiment feels worse, because at least back then things were going down, but you had people discussing and sharing their thoughts. Now it's just, oh fuck, we are still going down, basically. So despite all that, I hope you guys are doing great. I hope that you've been able to have a system that helped you avoiding the recent downtrend on Bitcoin. If like me, at least you've been mostly flat, good for you. If unlike me, you even managed to be short and short either shitcoins or Bitcoin, even more congrats to you. Don't forget to pay yourself. And if you've been wrecked, may as well be a lesson and not reproduce for the next cycle, basically. So I wanted to start the stream with that small rant, mostly because, yeah, I understand the thought process and that things indeed have been shit and that the sentiment is shit, but again, maybe it's just me, but I cannot agree that it's worse than it was previous cycles and things like this. The cycle, maybe on many ways, have been worse, than the previous ones in terms of opportunities and multipliers. But even that is arguable for people who've been focused on the right things. Even if I think it's been harder to trade though, that's for sure. But yeah, no crying in the casino, as they say, and we just keep clicking, make plans, move forward. So yeah, as I said, I'm gonna be discussing Bitcoin H1, H4 daily, weekly. Ask me any questions you have as I'm explaining my thought process, as I'm explaining the main things that I'm watching, the main things that I've been doing. Then I want to discuss a few recent setups that I took, what I think I did great, but mostly what I think I did wrong. And if you've been in the public streams before, you're probably gonna hear me say the same thing I've been saying in previous streams, because I have unfortunately repeated the same mistakes that I did in the past, which is basically be happy that I'm not getting wrecked by the move down, but fail to short my invalidations when they get retested, whether it was on Bitcoin when we exited our long mid-January, sorry, it came for the retest of my stop and I ended up not shorting it. And it's been a recurring mistake for me this cycle. And I've been discussing it with you guys many times, but I have yet to stop being an idiot and fix that. So we will discuss that later if you guys want. And yeah, let's just go. Some question before. Skiing and drinking beers, maybe even pizza. That's the life. 1, 2, 3 pizza. In those kind of conditions, unless you're comfortable scalping intraday price action and maybe even looking for shorts, sometimes less is best. Less is more. I think that's the saying, right? And as I just said, not shorting my invalidations, maybe I've been a little bit too comfy in that position of less is more. Maybe I've not been grinding enough. But yeah, sometimes it's just better to do nothing and wait for things to settle, wait for a bottom to form, for conditions to change, whatever. Anything that is delivering conditions that are more favorable to you, no matter what it is. For example, I know that we have some people in the Haven, we have some people on the feed on Twitter right now who are extremely comfortable with those kind of conditions and that are doing very great with those. Good for them, to be honest. But yeah. Salut mon pote, French accent. Yeah. I've been speaking English more than I've been speaking French for the last 10 years. And I still can't get rid of that French accent. But I kind of stopped trying. It brings me more than it costs me. As someone that joined in 2021, I feel that people say it's worse because there is zero novelty. On that point, I agree with you. I think one thing that got weird with this cycle is that maybe the feeling of we can actually change things in the society and we have actually a technology that can be useful has been less true. And I think one of the factors for that has been crime season / meme coins, and that has been enhanced by the entire Trump administration. The way Trump, nothing against Trump, but the way it has been involved in crypto, Trump meme coin, Melania meme coin, all of those things. Maybe it has impacted the way people are hopeful for the market as an industry, as a technology, and as a revolutionary technology. That's for sure. And I guess maybe that's why it's been more painful. But I would also argue that price going down tends to do that, in the sense that in 2021 or before, when shitcoins were pumping and price was going up, the technology behind seemed revolutionary. In fact, it wasn't. So obviously, price going down is obviously playing an impact on whether this is a worth industry or not. And I think what you said, I cannot say your name, I'm sorry, it's too complicated. I think what someone said in the chat is true, and maybe on that part, indeed, the sentiment is worse, and it feels less desperate in the sense of, okay, it's now been 3 cycles more, but since a broader acknowledgement of crypto, it's been 3 cycles, let's say that way, 2017, 2021, this one. And the main thing we have to deliver at this point is stablecoins, which is indeed very useful, especially in countries where there is a strong problem with base currency, those kind of things. So stablecoins, futures, prediction markets have been quite mainstream during this cycle. But so far, not much more than that. For example, there has, outside of Polymarket, there has not, and maybe I'm forgetting right now, but there has not been a revolutionary DApp that has breached into the non-crypto guys world, basically. And personally, I was expecting this cycle to be the one where we see this where we see a breakthrough in dApps. Where basically I was thinking in my mind at the beginning of this cycle, I had two main ideas. The first one was that we are. I was expecting Idiocracy to accelerate, and therefore I was expecting what we saw on meme coins. I did not make the best out of it, but it's something that I was not surprised to see. And at the same time, I was hoping and expecting to see a breakthrough in dApps, and that we would distance ourselves from infrastructure focuses and was more in terms of usage and users. Like, okay, obviously it's ETH and Sol, and they're gonna split apps or dApps, but we are not going to care that much on which infrastructure it is. We are going to care about the app itself. We kind of got that with Hyperliquid, but once again, Hyperliquid, as much as I love the product and use the product, it's a fantastic product. But at the same time, it's yet still another exchange. Let's not pretend otherwise. It's working extremely well. It's been one of the very few accomplishments of this cycle. But again, it's yet another exchange. It's yet another just speculation, basically. But good airdrop, good money, obviously. So it helps with the sentiment. But yeah. Nothing intriguing since NFTs. Yeah, kind of. And NFTs were pretty dumb, to be honest. So, but yeah. But again, I've been streaming. I've been sharing content on CT since 2018. I can't. Everything we are discussing right now, I feel like I've been saying it in the past already. I'm not trying to be a professional copper, even if that's what we are. But I mean, we've been there. Maybe it's gonna get worse in the sense that maybe it's gonna be longer to heal. Maybe no one knows, but maybe it's worse. I don't care. But I mean, we cannot be too surprised by crypto being wrecked at some point, and by Bitcoin retracing 40% from the highs. Like we went to 120,000 fucking dollars for one Bitcoin. I don't know. To me, it still seems fucking insane. But yeah. Honestly, these crashes been well for me. They are so predictable. Just gotta adapt and don't leave trades open overnight. I don't know if it's a sentiment that people share, but the way I read what you said means that you've accepted downtrends. You are not fighting them, and it's rewarding you. So keep going, man. As long as you pay yourself. We can't hold 74k Elmao, 71k next. Yeah, I'm soon as I'm done with my rant, I'm gonna be discussing that. Hyperliquid was a pretty cool cycle dApp, 100%, and oh yeah, agreed. I just lost my screen. Okay, it's fine. And oh yeah, agreed. It's just an exchange. It's just an exchange, but I think the main value crypto brings is decentralized trading and payments. Maybe you're right, man. Maybe you're right, and maybe if that's for now what we can bring to the world, then so be it. May it be that. May it be that, and we'll see in the future if anything different comes out of it. Also, one last thing on that is the main people I've seen crying about these are traders like me on the timeline. I mean, yeah, cool. We click buttons. Who are we to discuss? Who are we to discuss that? We just click buttons. We don't have the authority to shit on these. Just click button if that's what you do, basically. How often do you flip your scalp into a swing trade? I don't have a statistic for that. It's from bits like on top of my head. However, I would say it's something that I've been trying to do more, but that I haven't done in a while. And again, probably because I have not made the best out of the downtrends, and therefore maybe it's why I haven't had much swings running over the past few months. But it's often something I try to do, especially in context where I initially trade a break of a trend into gap fills, and the gap fills materialize into a bigger trend break on a higher time frame. Let's see the recent Bitcoin daily long. For example, if let's forget that it's the daily time frame, but on a setup like I took early January, the main goal was to get most of the position closed by daily 100 MA and daily 200 MA. We only got daily 100 MA, but if we had the strength to break through daily EMA, that would have been a base for an even bigger position. So when I'm in the context of a gap fill setup, like the one that I could be interested on H4 if/when H4 downtrend was to break, this would be a scalp mostly, but I would very likely keep a bag and turn into a swing if that was a bigger reclaim, basically. But I don't have a statistic on that from bit. I know Krillin is very good with that, and that it's something he often tries to do. And if I'm not mistaken, he made a post recently discussing just that, and that as much as it's an interesting thing to do, it's something to be cautious about also. I would need to find his post. He's been trading metals mostly, good for him. So I cannot find his post in the Haven. But yeah, he made a post about that. Krillin is good at that, much better than me at that. Hyperliquid indexes is the only way forward. Sexes have proven to be crime dense this cycle, 100%. I still use Kraken as a on-off ramp mostly, and for some spot exposure. I've made an account on OKX recently because I have a good friend from City, Chris Smith, for those who might know him, that joined OKX lately, and yeah, I've been discussing with him. So yeah, I decided to make an account over there and check. Also because if they said that yeah, I just wanted to try to split a little bit between Kraken, but outside of that, I'm mostly using Hyperliquid. I've been using Lighter between the month of June till the airdrop. Unfortunately, not enough, or not with enough size, or not smart enough. I did get a cool airdrop, but nothing like Nexus on Hyperliquid, basically. But yeah, in a world where Hyperliquid is the way it is right now, I don't see any reason to use sexes anymore. If you self-custody, then yeah. Just asking this question for later, as I have to head out before the end, but is weekly 200 MA a potential area to get some cheaper BTC for the nephews, or more for a trade? Probably more for the nephews. Something that I would not be willing to trade, basically. And yeah, if/when we get sub weekly 200 MA, any kind of weeks into it deviation, I would be interested to add to the nephews funds. Do you own any spot hype? I don't own any spot hype anymore, beside a small amount stacked. I do not. I've been exceeding my spot positions quite some time ago. I've been trading it a lot. I tried to trade it a lot as best as I can, but yeah, I don't own any spot anymore. I could be interested to turn some position into spots eventually, but But no, I do not. I do not. Not nothing against it. It's more of my philosophy of not owning anything when I'm not in an active trade, and this is a perp-based trade. So basically, pizza. If unless I am in a position with a setup defined in advance, I don't hold any spot outside of some Bitcoin. It's a PTSD from previous cycle. It's a PTSD from previous cycle. But I did own some spot on hype for some time, basically post airdrop, but I'm not happy with the way I managed it. I failed to compound on the reclaim of daily trend in April. I joined too late, and then I got chopped at the highs. So nothing that I'm very proud about when it comes to hype trading and overall hype farming and all of those things. I would say that two of my main mistakes this cycle have been the first one that I discussed earlier, failing to flip my invalidations or to use my invalidations retests as opportunities for shorts in case of longs. It's something that I did many times. I think the main examples I have lately is this BCH long. I had the XPL long that did pretty much the same thing. After the daily trend reclaim over here, you can see that compounding fails. I exit the position, we come for the retest, and I just did not shorted it. And I think I did the same thing on Monad. So to me, that would be, you see, stop loss, come for the retest, do not short it. And I think this is the first main mistake I did. And the second one for me is that I have not been active enough on the farming side of things. And I put that again on complacency. Last cycle, I was very vocal about being curious and open-minded, and I was very active on Avalanche, on Phantom, on Harmony, on anything where there was some value to farm and some new tokens, because that was the meta, right? And it paid very well for me. It paid very well for me last cycle, and this cycle maybe I was a little bit too cynical, but I have not been active enough on this side, despite seeing Nexus, for example, talk about Hyperliquid for months before deciding to do my first deposit over there, basically. So DeFi Kingdoms, yeah, I got fucked on that. I got fucked on that. I was even in a DAO that was actively buying and playing the game, and I never sold. I think I entered DeFi Kingdom between $1 and $2, and it went up to 22 or something like this, and I never sold. And when I tell these kind of stories, people understand a little bit more why I have this strong PTSD. But yeah. And maybe it's one of the reasons I've been less active on chain and less curious this cycle and more focused on Bitcoin itself, which in its side was a great decision considering the way Bitcoin has outperformed most things. But still, it's one of my regrets in any cases. All right, so let's speed run the process on H1, H4, etc. So for me, over the past few weeks, I've been most outside of some spot holdings that I've failed to sell higher over the past few months. The last big trade I took on Bitcoin was that daily trend break, retest and reclaim into daily 100 MA. That's the last big long I took on Bitcoin. When I say big long, it means that it's sized 0.8 to 1 R basically. And it's a swing size for me. So even if I was not expecting this to turn into a swing, that was a setup I was willing to put risk on, mostly because it's a setup we waited for since November. Since November, we had in mind that we would want to see some chop fest, into daily trend reclaim, and if/when that would happen, we would try to capture a move to daily 100 MA. Since that, so half of the position was cut up to daily 100 MA, which was Pico local top. A quarter was closed once again on the break of 90K initially. and the rest was cut at break even when we lost 89.5, 90K. Ever since, I've been mostly flat on Bitcoin, and the main thing I've been doing is try to basically to feed my appetite to trade, because I'm not a day trader, I'm not a scalper, so in order not to make mistakes on bigger positions, and in order to stay patient and stick to my mantra of when above where, I've been trying to scalp on very reduced size, lower time frame, mostly Bitcoin, a few shitcoins, hype, those kind of things. And yeah, for me, basically, since we lost 89K, 88K, the main focus and what I've spammed people in the Haven probably 1,000 times and probably 50 times per minute was H1 trends. You guys know probably if you've been listening to the streams before, or if you've been watching my content on CT, you should know that there is something I often say, is that when we have volatility windows, when we start trending that way or have brutal moves, lower time frame trends tend to be goated, and they tend to be some of the best focuses to have. Often 15 minute H1 are the ones that I like the most. And basically the idea is keep your focus on it until it doesn't work anymore. And basically, yeah, keep the focus on it. I'm trying to see, even recently I tweeted that lower time frames still remain best focuses to have, and that they tend to be the best focuses to have on these kind of short windows of time. And H1 downtrend has been a strong resistance from 90K all the way up till Monday and 77K. So that's quite the brutal H1 trend, to be honest. It's a 12% H1 trend, which is quite big for Bitcoin. And the idea on Monday that we had was, okay, we have a break of H1 trend. We have an opportunity for a potential gap fill to H1 100 MA. Exact same idea than the long on the daily, by the way. It's wait for the trend to break, and if it's flip support, aim for the gap fill to 100 MA. Exact same idea, but it was on H1. And as I said at the beginning of the stream, we had early answers that it would probably fade, and we would probably just chop fast around on 15-minute compression and around H1 trend when we started to fail to flip H1 to 15-minute 200 EMA. And basically, yeah, after that, H1 trend lost again, and you know the rest of the story, we came for new lows. So short term for me, if you're watching H1, my main idea is that we have the confluence of H1 downtrend that was retested post bounce and during the night at 66, 67K, 75.5, 76.5K. And it's in confluence with late Jan low and the low from Monday. So obviously this retest was pretty key for me this morning, especially after a bounce that happens right at the close for SPX and news driven basically. So for me on H1, the main idea is that 75.5, 76.5 plus H1 trends needs to be reclaimed. If we manage to form a higher low, or at least defend the low, come back for the retest and reclaim it, I would say that short term we might very well see more ranging in this region, in the 76, 79 region. At the opposite, obviously, especially with H1 trend being still resistance, if we fail to print any kind of higher low in this region, if we start losing lows, if SPX continues to retrace the bounce it had at close yesterday, then light a candle and set some alerts in the weekly 200 MA region. We're gonna get to this point when we get to the weekly time frame. So if you're watching H1, in my opinion, forget about any idea of scalping longs until this is reclaimed. And I just saw a message from Bucket Printer, which is very good. He said the issue is that the problem is that gap to H1 100 MA is very small. And I 100% agree with you. To me, if we were to reclaim this, that would not mean that I want to take a long. That would be more of a, okay, maybe we are good to at least chop fast like this while the gap reduces on H1. But I would not be interested to long that. The gap is not big enough, and basically it would be an H4 trend retest. Reclaiming this region would make me think that I'm not going to wake up tomorrow with weekly 200 EMA alerts going off, basically, versus losing the lows today. The only idea of a setup I would have for the long side is on H4, and is it would be an H4 trend break. Right now we have H4 trend, which is in confluence with the local highs and consolidation that we've had, and it went a little bit lower since I did my update, but it's basically 76.5 up to 79k. It's gonna catch down as price develops, but basically the only long idea I have short term would be on a break of H4 downtrend. If I start seeing H4 downtrend broken, I would be interested to try and capture a move to H4 100 MA. Now, some reminders about this kind of setups. I have it written on my charts. The main reminders I have to say are that to me, a trend is broken when I have one, a close above the trend, and two, -1 time frame 200 EMA broken. Therefore, in that case, because we are watching H4 trends, I would need to see H4 close above H4 trend and H1 200 EMA broken. That's why I have highlighted H1 200 EMA on my chart, which should be slightly lower now as price develops. And it's the exact same thought process that was a trigger for the long early January. We have the close above daily trends, and now we want to see if H4 200 EMA is flipped support or not. And you can understand why we had an entry in this region. It closed above daily trend, came for the retest of H4 200 EMA. H4 200 EMA defended. Okay, we go for the long. And the idea would be the same on H1, on H4 here. It would be pretty much the exact same idea than the one we took on daily early January. And it would be the exact same setup basically. So that would probably look like this. Maybe tighter invalidation, I don't know yet, and probably lower target because H4 100 EMA is going to catch down with price. But it could be something like this. At this point, the only long I would have in mind, the only one that I would have a setup I know I can stick to would be this, and I would be much more interested in buying potential strength than hoping for strength, basically. So that would be, at this point in time, this would be the kind of long that I would be interested to take. Now, other reminder, the longer it takes, the smaller the gaps, as I just said, and therefore the less interesting they are to chase. So let's say that this is defended, we bounce for the rest of the afternoon, and we start consolidating like this for quite some time. Obviously, H4 100 EMA is going to catch down with price, and the gap is going to be less interesting to chase. I don't have a defined, strict definition of what I consider to be a gap big enough or not. Most often than not, it comes down to how close I can have an invalidation, and therefore how tight I can have a setup, maximizing the risk reward basically. But once again, at this point in time, the only long I would have in mind would be on a break of H4 downtrend. I don't have any idea of longs anywhere else but on the H4 trend reclaim at this point. That might change today, later today, tomorrow, I don't know. But my main approach when it comes to trading trends and in general is when above where. I don't care if Bitcoin gets to 40k, or maybe not 40k, I'm exaggerating, that would be maybe too tempting. But I don't care if Bitcoin gets to weekly to 200 EMA. That does not necessarily mean that I want to long that. I would prefer to long if/when we are above a trend that I've been focused on than on a special play, on a particular place. The idea behind this approach is that I don't care missing bottoms, I don't care missing tops, but if I am to get into a position, I want to do so on strength or weakness if I'm shorting, rather than hoping for it. And one of the reasons of that is obviously previous PTSD, but it's also because I know myself. I have better odds of a setup playing out fairly rapidly when a trend is reclaimed or broken than when we just get to a particular level. We know that sometimes, and most often than not, bottoms take time to form, tops take time to form. In the end, V-shaped reversal aren't that frequent in the end. So, and I know that if I position myself too soon, or if I don't have clean enough invalidations for me or things to focus on or to trigger, my idiot brain is going to find ways to invalidate the position, even if the level is not lost, for example. So when will I be interested to long? I will be interested to long when H4 downtrend is broken. On H4, obviously. And on daily, obviously the idea is the same thing. When would I be interested to trade Bitcoin? I would be interested to trade Bitcoin either on a retest of daily downtrend. If we get a retest and rejection, I would be interested to short it, or when daily trend is reclaimed. What does that mean? That means that, let's imagine that we get to the weekly 200 EMA region, it gets defended, but we chop around it long enough that daily trend is catching down with price. If I get weekly 200 EMA defense plus daily trend reclaim, I will buy and I will try to long. But I will not necessarily / automatically buy because we are at weekly 200 EMA. I will need to see more strength and I will need to see daily trend being broken. Over the past years, have you ever tracked the win rate of your system? Yes, but it has changed so much over the past 6-7 months. Not changed so much, but the things I focus on has changed so much that I would need to study that a little bit more. I am in the profile of not taking many trades, at least not on size, but I have a fairly good win rate on these. So I'm a fairly passive trader compared to other people on CT, I would say, or at least the majority of people on CT would tend to be much more active than I am. But when I go on a setup with conviction, it tends to pay quite nicely. One thing that I will need to track more, and that could be something that I need to do for 2026, even if it's not my top priority, even if not something that I do the most, I would need to spend more time studying scalping results. The problem is that I treat intraday and scalps so much as a way to avoid trading big and while I'm waiting for my when above where, that I don't know how relevant it is. I will need to take it more seriously and study it more. When I see how Krillin does well scalping using the system, we have very similar systems. I kind of hate myself for not being more serious about it, or at least, yeah, more dedicated to it. And basically, if I account those burner accounts, my win rate is probably very bad. But I don't need a lot of trades to make my early gains. Most often than not. Un mot sur XPL pour l'année 2026. A word for XPL for 2026. I would say that I was fairly optimistic about XPL earlier when it broke finally through the daily downtrend that it was stuck below since listing, by the way, or at least since the moment the daily trend appeared on the chart. The fact that it has not been able to pump more than it did to fill the gap to daily 100 MA is pretty concerning, but most importantly, it means that if next it reclaims the daily trend again, I don't even know if I want to position myself. I don't like to make predictions. I'm bad at it, and it's not the way I trade. But at this point, you better hope that XPL managed to do a U pattern like this, where it spends some time to chop at the lows, a little bit like Link did between the last 2 cycles, if I'm not mistaken. If we go onto the daily, onto the weekly, sorry. a little bit like this, where it spends a lot of time to reset into giving a leg up. So I would say G11 that before this failed trend reclaim, my main idea when it comes to XPL was wait for the daily trend to be reclaimed. At least wait for the daily trend to be reclaimed. But now that it has failed to flip it on the latest attempt to break it, I don't know, man. It's even shittier. It's even shittier to me. I don't know. Maybe the team at some point manages to turn things around, and but yeah, maybe what you can work with GG11 is this kind of level right now. You have a level right now which is 0.11.5 up to 0.13.5, which is the confluence of a previous low plus recent consolidation with daily trend confluence. If by an absolute miracle during the next few days to weeks market bounces a bit and XPL comes for the retest of this region, whether it's reclaimed or not can be a trigger for a long. If it's reclaimed, you might have an argument to try and capture a move to daily 100 MA. If it's flip resistance, then it's going to be fucked even more. So I don't have a prediction for 2026, but in the short term, on daily time frame, I would say that a level of importance right now would be the 0.115 up to 0.135. A retest of this region, a reclaim of this region could trigger some setups. And I'm actually going to set some alerts in this place so that I don't forget it if/when retested. And outside of that, on lower time frame, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, H4 trend seems to be a good focus to have. H1, H4 trend. But yeah. Earlier, someone said that this cycle felt worse because we didn't have any kind of breakthrough technologically speaking. And I feel like we cannot be surprised. If you tell me that this is the way a meme coin chart looks like, I would not be surprised, obviously. I would be like, yeah. I mean, it makes sense that this is the way a meme coin looks like. But the fact that even Plasma, which is a Liquid project, has a chart that looks like this, maybe it plays into the sentiment and how things are feeling right now, obviously. Undeniable. Okay, I only have 7 minutes left, so let's just quick word about Bitcoin Daily. As I said, I am not in any position right now, and ever since we lost 90k, I'm very unlikely to trade Bitcoin on the daily until we get to daily trend retests, a daily trend reclaim. Even if we get to weekly 200 MA, even if it's a place that makes sense to be focused on, I've been rewarded in the past for being patient and being focused on where above where, and it has avoided me buying what felt like obvious support, which ended up not being support, and it avoided me long period of chop fest at the lows, even if it means that I'm gonna miss a bottom. So on the daily, I would say daily trends is the best focus to have. Now, I think I have a weekly chart somewhere in my very messy chart. I have 1,000 charts right now. Okay, so that's my weekly chart, just to highlight the weekly 200 MA region. Obviously, so first, before that, if you're in the Haven and you watch the educational article, this kind of structure should remind you of some things. Classical trend break into 100 MA plus trend consolidation. 100 MA breaks, we expect the next gap fills. And even if you just watch the previous streams. So obviously I understand on a weekly basis and even daily basis why many people are interested in the overall 67, 69k region. It's the confluence of 2021 all-time high, previous all-time high cycle. It's the confluence of the high consolidation of 2024 before the Trump election pump. and it's weekly 200 EMA confluence, which historically has been a fairly good focus. If we go on the Bitpump charts, it's a little bit clearer. Particularly previous cycles, it was a fairly good indicator of local bottom being formed. It was less true during last cycle, where the bottom was more of a weekly EMA compression, which, by the way, we are very far from forming, but okay. So I understand the interest and the appeal on that level, obviously. But I've seen a post from Mercury recently who said that sometimes that obvious of a level tends to be blasted through. And I think he also said that he would much rather try to play a week into the low 60s than bidding the weekly 200 EMA retest. I tend to agree with him. I said earlier that I would only trade on a higher time frame if I had a daily trend retest or reclaim. The only other situation I would be interested to place a trade on higher time frame, daily to weekly, would be if we get some sort of nonsense. And when I say nonsense, it can be a move down to the low 60s on a single day, for example. I could be interested to try and position myself over there, but that would not be something I would be very comfortable with, because I would not know where to place my stops, where would be my validation. Not necessarily the things I'm the most comfortable with in general, but I'm not going to say I will not do it, because that could be a possibility. But yeah, just I wanted to say, EMA wise, the next place of interest after losing weekly 100 EMA is the weekly 200 EMA retest. If we forget that this is Bitcoin, if we forget that this is a weekly chart, if you show me a chart that looks like this, my main assumption would be to see weekly 200 EMA retested into maybe a bounce and a retest of weekly 100 EMA. A good example, I'm not quite sure, but a good example would be the ZEC daily chart. It's not exactly the same chart, but strong trend starts to crack, fails to clip support again, 100 EMA is lost, and we get to day 200 EMA. It's not exactly the same structure, obviously, but you get the point. So yeah, on weekly, again, the next place that makes sense, and I understand why people are watching this, is the weekly 200 EMA region. But as of now, I don't have a plan. So to summarize, on H1, in my opinion, a strong focus to have right now is the capacity to form a higher low in this region and defend the low from yesterday, plus reclaim 66, 67, and the H1 downtrend. That would not make me take a setup, but that would make me more comfortable in the idea that we're gonna chop instead of go for weekly 200 EMA immediately. Right now, the only place that I would be willing to pull a setup on would be on H4, and would be on the break of H4 downtrend, aiming for H4 100 EMA, H4 200 EMA, a classic gap fill setup. On the daily, I would wait for a daily trend retest, daily trend reclaim before making my next big trades on Bitcoin. And on the weekly, I cannot predict it just yet, but if I was to get some nonsense sub-weekly 200 EMA, I might not resist into putting a little bit of money on the table. But again, I would not be comfortable with it, because too many reasons for me not to stick to the plan and to not have a clear invalidation. So if I was to do so, I would probably do so with very reduced size and to dip my toe in the water. I don't know if it's the correct expression, but you get the point. And obviously, in a world where that was it for Bitcoin and it actually builds a form here, a reclaim of weekly trend plus weekly 100 EMA would make me flip the A's and would make me expect to see retest of the highs. But we are so far away from that. So I hope it's okay-ish clear. I tried to be, but yeah. Honestly, would be back up at 80k if traffic cooperated. You're probably correct in some ways, Axio, but at the same time, we have not waited for. At the same time, we are down 40% while SPX is still at the highs. So, indeed, today we probably could have bounced more if it was not for SPX retracing the bounce yesterday. But at the same time, we are down 40%. SPX has not moved. So, It's not a TradFi issue, to be honest. It's more of a crypto issue. Hey Pierre, appreciate all your updates and been following you a long time. Thanks for all you do. With pleasure, man. With pleasure. I always say in the Haven, making updates, sharing updates, especially in the time right now where we are at prices that could be interesting. When I share a lot of updates or when I spam updates, it often means that I'm fighting to stick to my overall idea and my overall plan. So I'm very happy if it helps some of you guys, but I'm also doing it for myself, to be honest. Any general thoughts on Solana? One of the few alts I'm currently short on, and I have summarized it in one of my recent streams with that. What's below here? Basically, Solana has the rest of the week to get back above 120 and not flip this place support or resistance. Otherwise, that would be quite a significant breakdown. So until Solana can get back above 120, I'm leaning bearish on Solana, price-wise. It's a fairly significant level. It's pretty much been defended since January 2024. So it's been a support. It's been a higher time frame support for 2 years. Yeah. So yikes. What do you think about the odds of BTC front running weekly 200 EMA and bouncing from here? I could not tell you the odds, obviously, mathematically speaking. I could see a world, especially if 76, 78 is rapidly reclaimed, where we bounce first before even getting there. Maybe even to come and retest weekly 100 MA from below. That might be too much to ask for, considering that we are still down 2.5% today. But until this entire area is reclaimed, I think weekly 200 MA is programmed. Enersolai, merci pour tout. With pleasure, man. And I actually need to leave. Do some alts. Ivan, I'm sorry. I have to go. I wanted to do some chat requests today, but I kind of feel also Bitcoin was the main focus to have. So I spent too much time discussing Bitcoin and discussing the main ideas I have. So I didn't have the time to do some alts. However, I should be streaming once again next Wednesday on this YouTube channel again. So if the market is a little bit less crazy than it is right now with Bitcoin down again 2.7%, we'll have some time to do chat requests. But right now I have to leave, unfortunately. Yeah. Thanks for the answer. Call me C. I am short in Solana from 106, but I don't know at what level to close. I just don't see any support level. I agree with you. The main levels of interest that I've had marked on the chart was the week low from January 2024 in the $80. And the invalidation I have is a break of H4 downtrend. The exact same way that a break of H4 downtrend on Bitcoin would trigger a long for me. Then if I short any shitcoins right now, my invalidation is a break of H4 downtrend. It's the same thing on Zcash. The main difference is that on Zcash, I have a much cleaner idea of the target I want to reach, which is daily 300 MA. But in general, if I had to summarize the stream, I would say that for me right now, the only thing that would make me trigger setups would be H4 trend retests and or reclaims. Retest for scalp shorts, reclaims for scalp longs, basically. And then classic gap fill setups. And I hope that all those bearish talks are going to anti-jinx the market and that we're gonna find some strength eventually. Right now we are back at retesting the place you would ideally want to see some AR low forming. So we'll see how it goes. But in any cases, I have to leave. Thank you very much everyone for joining. I will be streaming again next Wednesday. I will make a tweet later tonight to announce it. So stay in touch, and if it's not Wednesday, it will be another It will be another week, another day of the week, but next week I will do another weekly public stream. So it's gonna be on the same channel, and hopefully we have more time for cheat coins. And